Welcome back to another edition of Collaborators Campus or Changemakers Campus. I've got a few names for this, but today I want to tell you that your meetings do not have to be a waste of time, and I'm going to show you how. I'm going to start with what most people want to know first. There's a whole lot more to how to run one of these workshop sessions, especially if you're trying to do collaboration. But the first thing people usually ask is, how do I make an agenda for that? And I'm going to tell you an idea that might be controversial. There's no agenda. There's a structure, but not an agenda. Agendas mean that you need to stay the same. And I'm saying that sometimes you have to be fluid and work with the group and go away from an agenda. So we're going to look at my Miro board here, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the structure. The structure of an emergent collaboration system or a workshop follows 5 key pieces. Number 1, you want to have a connection. Right here, you want to connect in the very beginning. Even if are people who have worked together a long time, you want to do something that brings people together and some sort of connection. There's a lot of different ways people call this. Some call it icebreakers. I prefer to call it a connection moment and do something a little different. I've mentioned before in other videos that there are some connection cards that We Connect makes, or you can just Google some great startup activities. The next thing you want to do are going to be, ooh, it looks like I'm missing one here. You're going to start with collecting information. If you are collaborating, you are wanting to work with people to get ideas out of them. And when I say collect, I don't mean, all right, everyone tell me your answer. I mean pull the answers out of them. This won't be something like popcorn where people just yell out answers because that's going to pretty much kick out half the people. This is where you're going to use note and vote. You can get some post-it notes, write them down quietly, alone together, and then put them up on the board for everyone to see. The next piece that you're going to do is going to be, oops, I've got my draw on. Let's not do that. Is going to be choosing. This is where everyone's going to get together and they are going to choose the item or items that they want to work on to solve the problem of the day. Within the choosing process, you need to have a decider vote because sometimes it will end up as a tie. Not everyone can agree on what to work on, so you need that decider vote. Choose them in the beginning. Usually it's a manager or a leader of a group, but it could be just someone new assigned that day. The next piece you want to do is create. So when we create, we are creating some solutions to the problems that we chose to focus on. There's many different activities you can use for this. You could do interviews, you could do storyboarding. Depending on the session is what you'll do with the create piece. What I left off of here, let's duplicate this image here. For some reason, I deleted commit. You want to then commit at the end of this process, 1T, to what you've decided as a group. A common way to do a commitment is you take all of these ideas that you've created and you put them onto what's called an action board. Some of you have heard this called an impact risk matrix or impact effort scale. It's a way for you to categorize things that are decided upon in the group as what you want to move forward with. And then the very end of the session, you're going to want to have some kind of closing activity. It doesn't have to be necessarily related to this. It could be a reflection of the day. It could be a game. It could be anything that will make it memorable for the group at the end of the session. So I call this the 4 C's plus 2. Connect in the beginning, get started with that. Collect, choose, create, commit, and then we end with the final C of close. Here's what this looks like in practice. On any given day, let's say you have a 1 day workshop. On any given day, humans can really only focus for about 3 hours straight with breaks. To focus for an entire day is really going to be draining. And most of the time, you're going to lose people in the afternoon. So you want to usually put your heaviest brain work in the beginning of the day. So you would start off the day with a connection exercise. It could be everyone get together and draw your partner and ask them questions. So draw a picture of your partner and then introduce your partner at the table, for example. So you do that in the beginning. I'd give this some time. Give it at least 30 minutes for people to really feel like they're joining the day, they're getting into the groove. And then you can move on to the actual brain work where you start with the collection. You'll be asking them questions depending on the topic and having people come up with ideas on how to solve the problem or ideas of what's not working or ideas of what the next product is that you want to build. So then you would just collect those ideas here. So that could be maybe an hour if we do it just a straight 3 hour block. Then you take some time to choose. This can be as simple as voting with dots and then categorizing the selections and seeing which category earned the most dots, and then having the decider choose what to work on next. All of that should take at least an hour and a half, maybe two. But depending on how much time you want to give for the next phase, you would limit your collection time and your choosing time appropriately. Remember, I've said before, all conversations and activities are timed and we sequence them. All right, so we've collected, we've chosen what we want to work on, and then we move in to create. This would be the last piece of that 3 hour block. And this is where you would create solutions to what you have decided to work on. Maybe you've decided that you're going to work on a specific area of the business and do a strategy for the year for that. So then you could start creating ideas of what we could do to make that goal met within the year. And after this 3 hour focus, people are really going to need a bit of a lengthy break. So that's where you would put in a lunch break, a really long snack break, at least give people a half an hour. I prefer to give an hour. People can eat, they can talk with each other, they can kind of download and process everything that happened in the morning. And then after that phase is the commit phase. Now, you may have to go through a few more collect, choose, creates, because maybe you're starting with big ideas and you start narrowing it down and you want to get even more ideas on a particular subset of the topic for the day. So you may have to then collect more ideas based on what you guys choose to work on and then create more solutions after that. But it should always follow this process of collect, choose, create. That's what I mean by structure. It's not an agenda of we will do this activity now and then this activity at this time. It's we're going to go in this order and we're going to see how the day goes because new ideas may pop up that you're not expecting, or the person you're working with who's the decider says, I think we should go in a different direction, and you have to revamp everything and go in a new direction. Once we get down to the commit phase, you've come up with a solid set of ideas. And the commit phase is where you could do one of two things. You could start ranking them on priority, or you could use the effort uh, impact scale in the commit phase, or you could set up the timeline here. Okay, we've come up with our goals for the year. Now let's put them on a timeline. When do we want to have this goal done? And put a deadline for that. Who is going to be doing that? What do they need to be able to complete that goal? And you go through that with each of the things that you have chosen to do in your plan. So all of the concepts from the prior steps are turned into individual stickies and you put them onto the board as a single goal, a single activity. And then once you've made it through all of that, by the end, you will have the whole roadmap of what you have committed to as a team. whether that be product design, whether that be a strategic plan, or just what you're going to do for the next offsite meeting. And then finally, because humans tend to remember the first thing that happened and the most recent thing that happened and then the last thing that happened, you want to have a really good closure. One I've used that's pretty fun is a game. So think of any kind of a game. You could have a silly little prize at the end. Another one, depending on the group, is a moment of reflection. What worked well today? What did I learn from the day? What do I plan to do moving forward? Something like that. So all of that defines the structure that you have instead of agenda for a workshop. In the next sessions, we'll go into things like mindset. How do you do this? We'll go into things like what are the activities you could use to fill these procedures. So if there's anything that you'd like to talk about specifically, go ahead, leave me a comment below, and then I read all of them. Send me a message, go to my website, traxelconsulting.com, sign up for my school group, and just let me know what you're thinking.